whether it's like you fucking stub your toe or you get your goddamn pocket caught in the handle and you're like, that it only happens on when it rains, it pours days. I'm expecting catastrophe at this point.
You know, this is actually really just super pertinent right now. I got so many questions on my last live Q&A with my students about the like impending recession. And I'm like, here we go. Here we go. So we had a topic. Hello, welcome everyone. I'm Sarah Turner. And this is Emily Pennystone.
Welcome to the Yes. Oh. Fuck everything.
And we sound chaotic as fuck because we had a topic picked out.
Yes.
But we keep having tech issues. And Emily's super frustrated. And I am in a sassy mood. So I'm kind of just laughing at her a little bit. But like with love in my heart. And so we were talking about why is it when it rains it pours, and this is now the new thing we're talking about, because it is a thing. We've all had a day like that where it's just like back to back to back to back. You're like, what is happening?
Like, this is gonna kill me. This is the day that kills me.
Like this is
the one.
And
this is
it makes me think of that. There's like a little TikTok, I can't believe I'm saying this, that like I love so much, where the lady's like in her bathrobe at a field and she's like, I want to opt out. I would like to opt out.
I know exactly what you're talking
today.
Yes. I just like can't. It's getting to the point where it is just funny. So I appreciate you laughing at my suffering and my pain. Well, but
it's because your suffering today is like tech stuff. And well, actually, that's not true. Your suffering is also some really intense. I know.
Deeply emotional.
I know. I'm sorry. I realized that as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, it's just tech stuff. No, it's your biggest trauma.
You don't have anything to complain about, Emily.
It's your biggest trauma, the hardest struggle of your life. It just keeps bubbling up. We don't have to talk about that right now, but it's like, it is okay. No. Well, we know, everybody knows that your thing, or the thing that you've struggled with the most, is religious trauma and the pain that was caused to you in the exceptionally toxic church you were in. I'm like,
yes.
And
you're doing a great
job. And today was a day of being confronted with people from your past and all of that. And that's really intense. And then tech stuff.
It's really intense. Yeah.
And so we didn't mean
and then tech stuff on top of it.
Dude, and let me tell you, tech stuff is no joke. Like, I have cried so many tears over tech stuff. Like, creating my first website, making this YouTube situation, this like studio space in my house. I am not exaggerating. It took me 3 months, 3 full months. And I cried a few times about it because it was so difficult. I would fix one thing and then another thing would break. And I was just like, oh my God. What is
it? Just like, it's the defeat. Like, I feel defeated. Like, that's how I feel right now about this like computer I'm trying to set up. It just is like, at every turn I figure one thing out and then another thing isn't working, and I'm just like,
listen, it happens.
I'm looking out the window. There's all these little girls that live in my neighborhood, and they're all knocking on my door right now. They're so cute. They're like so cute, and they're just like prancing around outside. Oh my God. But anyway, that made me happy. So I was just sharing my joy.
So the thing is like, what is it about when it rains it pours? Is it just always Mercury's in retrograde? Please enlighten me.
Yes, that for sure. Definitely Mercury.
Okay. That's what I thought.
But apparently we're out of eclipse season. So I don't know what that means. Like, why is this happening to me still?
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening because of eclipse season. That's what I was about to say.
Eclipse season's over. It should be like,
yeah, I was totally about to say that. Yeah.
Listen,
isn't Mercury always in retrograde? Like, how is it
in my life? Yes. For me,
you're like
definitely.
You're like Mercury. You're like, for me, Mercury has been in retrograde for the last year.
Perma retrograde. Yeah, for sure. Just chaos.
Okay, but for real, what is that? Because I've thought about this before. I've thought about, is it that we just like have that story, right? That when it rains, it pours. And so we
We're
are
looking
more
for it.
sensitive and we're looking for
Yeah.
it, right? I do
Yeah.
think that to some extent you can have a day where it's like exhausting, right? Because like back to back to back to back, you're just being confronted with like issues. And that's really exhausting. But I
Yeah.
do think that like if you took all those little issues and spread them out over a week, you probably wouldn't have
Manageable.
like,
yeah.
that day where you're like, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
So,
okay, here's a thought experiment. Could it be something with like quantum entanglement? Like you're dealing with shit and then everything that's attached to that gets all fucked up. I don't think that's how quantum like mechanics work, but in my brain, this is how I'm going for it.
Yes.
Like, is it just like it's all stimulated and it's just like ricocheting out there? Way over here, there's this thing, but then weirdly linked, there's this other thing that's completely separated, but they're linked.
You know what Ben would say?
What would Ben say?
Ben would probably say something to the effect of, no, it's actually quite simple. You pez.
No, first.
No, first of all, no.
Just a no.
No.
Just a no with a pause.
He does this. This man is very direct. No.
Yes. Facts.
Listen, it's much more simple than that. It really is probably that. I mean, you've got 365 days in a year times like how many like years in your life. The chances are you're going to have a more difficult day where more things go wrong sometimes.
Right.
That's boring. I know, but it's
that's so boring, Ben. Come on.
All of his answers to everything are so like just like based in such like sound, simple, logical.
Practical. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm always like
I don't live there though. It's like it's magic and antagonizing black magic that's coming at me from Mercury. I don't know. It's quantum entanglement. It's gotta be.
Absolutely.
That's how it works.
Because we are that important, right? That the universe is always
bends around
Yeah,
me.
it's always bends around you. And you are always either being supported or just absolutely fucked with. There's nothing is left to chance.
I'm so fucked. I have just like tears. They're not stopping. They're just happening. They're dripping down my face. There is like something about though. Okay, being the center of your own universe. Let me think.
Tears.
I mean, because we
like you're sad crying.
I think they're just. I don't know what they are. They're just coming out of my face, okay?
Listen, okay.
Anyway, I don't know, because like we all do feel like we're the center of our own universes, right? Everything we're
being fucked with when things are fucked up. Like sense of being like, am I being fucked with right now? That's like one of the worst feelings.
Yeah, and I have felt like that nonstop, like, which it is hard. Like that's just been kind of like nonstop for me, just like, and it's hard to like orient, you know. But it puts me in like like I'm fighting against, I don't know, like I'm just like, and it's true. These are like, I'm going to just put together like 15 half sentences right now, but it's true. It's just true that like when the things start happening, you start feeling like, okay, what else is going to happen? Like I actually I can start, and I can start getting even a little paranoid around like, is somebody going to crash into my car? Like,
really?
Is it going to be something like that? Like, yeah, am I going to deal with something like outside me that's actually going to like,
you're brushing by that. And I'm like, hold on.
What? I have some weird issues with like being in the car. Yeah. And it was kind of fucked up. I've got like some fucked up things over there. Moving on. Like I do whenever like the it rains, it pours. typically it will manifest in me hurting my body somehow, like getting injured. Whether it's like you fucking stub your toe or you get your goddamn pocket caught in the fucking handle and you're like, or you like that. It only happens on when it rains it pours days. That's the only time I get my pocket stuck. Like 100%. Here, wait, tangent, funny story. When I was a child, there was, do you remember those like cargo pants that you had to wear?
No, the old pocket stuff.
Okay, this is part.
The old pocket stuff. I'm like 10 paces behind you because there's so many things you're saying right now that I'm like, hold on.
Keep up. We're moving on.
We need to unpack a lot more, but please, what happened when you were a kid? Continue.
Oh my God, I was probably like 12. And this is, now that I'm saying these, like, they're like farmer pants. And now I'm looking back, I'm realizing that was probably a homeschool.
Yeah, you're like, remember those cargo pants that we had to wear? And I'm like, no, I do not.
But if I said that to my sister, she'd be like, yeah.
Okay, so
fuck those things. They were like wide leg. They were like farmer jeans. It's the only way I could describe them. And they had like big pockets, but they had this little strap. Lord knows why. For a carabiner? I don't know. But there was like a little strap that goes like on the hip.
For a hammer.
Kind of like below the hip on the... For a hammer. Yes. It was probably for a hammer because I was 12 and I needed... That's what it was. I didn't know that was that. I have no idea. Because this is what... This is the purpose it served for me. Was that in...
To fuck with you?
We had this... Yes. It was the fuck you, 12-year-old Emily, little strap on my farmer jeans. And so we had this janky, like 12-passenger van. Like the thing like had a hole in the floor, janky. But the thing like, it just like kept like running. And it had this like, it had like a double door situation. It had two doors. And so there was the main door and then like the smaller second door. And that smaller second door had like this little like thing sticking out of it where the main door would like latch. Most of the time we would just open the main door and jump out. We wouldn't open both doors. So open the main door and I went to jump out of the van. But the fuck you strap got caught on the little peg that came out and I was hanging. Just imagine the fucking like vag wedgie I had. Like, and I just was suspended sort of at a diagonal, like hung on my janky homeschooler jeans. And that was a when it rains, it pours day.
That's one that stuck with you for decades.
That was an example.
For decades.
Because it was a perfect combination of like surprising and painful and just like unbelievable and embarrassing. Like just good.
Oh my gosh. You are so funny. I love when you get in moods like this. Like there's something about it. Like when you get in moods like this, I have to like sometimes remind myself to rein it in because I find you so funny when you're frustrated that I'm just like, I want to kind of almost like poke you a little bit. Like I'm just like, tell me more.
Oh my God. It does. It's like there's like this nihilistic part of me that comes out too. Like everything's meaningless. Yeah. Like maybe it's a protector part of me when I just like can't deal with it anymore. And I get real sarcastic and really dark humor and I probably offend a lot of people.
It's okay. We're all going to be okay.
Like after my mom died, I was in this for a long time. I feel like I was in this for like a suspended
I've heard that
amount of time
from other people and experiencing like losing people and then turning. My mom always tells stories about how her and her older brother and her little brother were shopping for clothes to wear to their mom's funeral. And she had like, it was like a long process. And how she was like, I don't even remember like what they were talking about, but they were like, in the mall in this small town where like people knew who they were, like could know who they were. And her and her older brother just kind of were going back and forth and got to a point where they were just like hysterically laughing so hard at like, I think just like life and like shopping for funeral clothes for their mom, like made it like way more fucked up and like, and they just were like cackling and their little brother was like, what is wrong with you two? And it just made it like even more funny and absurd. And they were just like on the ground,
right,
crying, laughing. And she's like, and it was such a like
oh my God,
sad moment, but like just so wildly out of control of like all of our emotions. And she was just like, but that's just like how we cope. Like, just like,
that's great that she had somebody, because like it doesn't feel good when you're doing that alone, because you just mostly feel like a crazy person.
It's
for sure.
It's
like, because I've done the
thing,
cackling
though. Like, I actually have
alone.
seen it in people. I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it in people where when they're like dealing with something that is so painful, where like they kind of like laugh because they just like, it's like you almost like it's like a short circuit where you don't know like what else to do, and you just kind of like laugh or like, smile, and you're like, ugh. It's such a,
this is what we're doing now.
It's such a weird feeling, but it's
yeah.
Wait, so back to the car thing.
Oh God. Okay.
Here you like
What's up?
You said that so casually that when you have like the universe is fucking with me days, that you think you're gonna crash your car. That's like real scary.
Yeah. Or somebody's going to crash into me. Mostly it's like somebody else is going to like, well, no, it's both. Okay. Interesting. I haven't really like thought about it, but I think I'm realizing that I have a thing with driving.
Oh, I do too.
Like car, like I think I have a thing with like, maybe it's just like a fear of like, you know, and I've never really I've been in like little car wrecks, like fender benders, like nothing like really bad, but like all growing up, both of my parents have been in horrible, terrible, like people died car wrecks, like really, really bad car wrecks. And, like my mom, like her entire right arm had all these like deep scars in it from, she went through a windshield. Like, and like crazy stuff. Like,
I didn't know that.
But it was stuff. Yeah, it was stuff that they didn't really like talk about
like,
a ton.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so maybe it stems from there. And my dad, his entire head is just, his head has gone through has crashed in like so many times. And it actually was like this joke that my mom would say, like cars, like your father only gets head injuries, and he does he just has had so many different head injuries. Like should I tell another story?
Sure.
About my dad and his head. This is a story my mom loved to tell. I hope it's okay. I love this story. It's such a good story. But it was when my parents
I'm just like laughing about how you're like, it's such a good story. It's like about your dad and head injuries, and I'm just like, don't even know where to go.
Wait, we'll get there. It's a great story. Here we go. So my parents were like, my dad was like pursuing my mom. They're in their like early 20s, and my mom worked as like an ER nurse. And my dad would kind of like show up like when my mom would get off her, because this is like, what is this? The 70s, you know, my dad just like hitchhiked everywhere. And my dad would like show up when she got off her shift. And so my mom would get off her shift with all her girlfriends, and they would all go out and go drinking or whatever after their shift, after their day in the ER, you know? And so there was this one day that my dad was there, and my dad, he's like, I've talked about him before. He's the most charismatic, like just, I wish I could like see a movie of like how he was when he was like trying to like pick up my mom, like and trying to get in there. Cause I bet it was just like the best energy ever. And my dad was like a ladies man. Like he had like girls throwing him, so apparently this is what I've heard. So, he was like, I want to like, let's go together. Let's all go, you know, go downtown or whatever and go get a drink. And so they all are piled into, I can't remember if it was my mom's, like somebody had like a minivan, and they were all piled into the minivan. And honest to goodness, I don't know what my dad was doing, but he was like he was like doing a thing and like showing off to all this like this van of girls that he was in with, and he had like opened the door of the minivan
while they're driving,
doing some dramatic thing while they're driving, and he fell out. Like he fell out of the van.
Oh,
and like cracked his head open, and like
this is
so
oh my god.
And so all the nurses, like, they all stop and they're like, oh my God. Like, they're just like, our shift is never ending. And they go to him, and he's like cracked his head open. And the only thing they had was like a maxi pad. And they slapped a maxi pad on his head. And he's like, I'm good. Let's go. My dad was like, why? He was like, let's go. I'm good. This will stop eventually. Like, let's go get a drink. And they were like, you need to go back to the ER and go get stitches.
Oh my gosh.
And I think he did. I think they made him go.
Wait, that's such a like quintessential like 70s like story.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's like the colors in my mind are like that. What is it? The like sepia, like
Oh, 100%. My dad had like the yellow the yellow aviator glasses, and he had like big curly afro, like all of it.
Yes. That's like exactly how I imagined all of that. And it was like
that's how it was.
Yes.
I know. Oh my gosh. So that's how my dad was trying to get my mom to fall in love with him.
And then so just head injuries,
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that makes sense.
So anyway, yeah. So you see why I'm
Wait, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Because I was like, the only time I like get like that is actually when I was like drinking and really hungover. I would get real paranoid and feel like I was like gonna die. It was awful, and be afraid that people would hit me. Or I didn't usually drive even when I was hungover. But yeah, that's interesting. I have like the biggest fear of accidentally hitting someone with my car, like a pedestrian, because it's like I know it's happened. You know what I mean? It's like an accident, and it's just I don't know. Happens in LA with people like crossing crosswalks, and like it's like my biggest fear. So yeah, I don't know why we just started talking about real grim fears.
I think I don't know. I guess I think that's why it's there. Is like I've heard these stories looming out there about, I mean, that was like a funny example, but there were like really terrible car wrecks. The other thing, let's go all the way down to the deep depths of depression. Yeah. I'm like rubbing my like hands together.
No, you're rubbing your like nubs together.
I was like knuckle nubbing my hands.
You were like a
what
gremlin.
Is this?
I don't know, but it was very like gremlin like
starting a sad little fire. So when I have been at like my most depressed, and I feel like we've talked about this before, but I would imagine while I was driving my car off like a bridge or crashing my car into like the semi truck, like that stuff. And so there's that root of that, like feeling bad, feeling overwhelmed, and having this like weird car like thing.
Listen, I think we do this thing. I used to do that. I also had this whole, oh man, there's so many tangents here. I'm like, which one do I want to go down?
Do all of them.
Well, one thing that I think happens in times like this is that we have like, when we have certain feelings, we just like, it's like a Rolodex. We're like, I'm feeling super anxious in this particular way. And we just like pull out the like associated memories. Like, I just think that's like how it works, because I even notice it, and Ben and I talk about it when we're having like where we're talking through something, where because you know when you're in conflict in a relationship, you tend to be like, you always do this thing, right? And it's like, no, they don't always do that thing, but when you're in that feeling and that emotion, it feels like that, because it's like what your brain is like pulling up. It's like, oh,
because you're remembering.
You felt like abandoned or rejected. Here are all the other times you felt abandoned or rejected. And then you're like, this is my life. My entire life is just being abandoned and rejected. Like,
right.
And
it's so true.
And it's, and if you, I really also think that if you're like consuming like a lot of like fear-based stuff, it really impacts you. Like, we went to, I love Neil Brennan and Friends, the West Side Comedy Club. And there was a comedian there, this woman, and she was so funny. I wish I could remember like 1% of what she said. but she was talking about like all the women who watch like true crime stuff and how it makes them all paranoid and they feel like everybody's a murderer. And she was just like, most men are walking around with like little poop stains in their underwear. They are not planning a murder to murder you. And I was like crying, laughing. She was like, but if you continue to consume like the one serial killer who like killed everybody in a super fucked up way, you're going to feel like people are constantly about to like, I don't know, chop all your limbs off and like take your body and like do weird things to it. And she had like organs. A whole thing on it. Oh my gosh. Her organs.
Wait, can I tell you about the I need to talk about that meme that I sent you. Yeah, it was like this girl, she was like slumped over and really sad and she's like, I'm worthless. And then there's like somebody there that's trying to like comfort her and is like, you're not worthless. And then beneath it is just a map of the human body and how much all of the organs are worth
on the black market.
The black market.
My favorite kind of meme. I love that. Like just so dark.
Just that the I'm trash meme.
That's my other favorite meme is the guy who's like holding his hand up longingly and the trash can is like driving off in the distance and it just says, wait, you forgot me.
Yeah. I love it so much.
The dark humor is kind of the best. I've actually realized like I think people like the people in the world I think who are the funniest are the ones who are like kind of fucked up. Like you have to have like experienced some dark shit to see the like humor in darkness. I actually had a partner once who was like didn't have that in him. Like didn't have like darkness in him and I used to be like, wow, he's so good for me because he doesn't have any of that. But it actually made it really hard to relate to him on like so many like on a layer because I was like, wow, you don't know what it's like to be sad. Like, what's that like?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's wild. Because it's true. Like,
it was really wild.
I feel like the more, like, if you've experienced, like, pain and sadness and depression, you can also, I feel like your capacity for experiencing, like, a tremendous amount of joy and happiness grows, too. Because you're, like, it like, carves out space in every area. And everything gets more expansive.
It's like that poem that I love, you know, The Prophet. It's like a pretty famous poem in the book, The Prophet, about joy and I think joy and despair or sadness even. And it's like the despair that you have like carves out like a deeper like vessel for you to hold greater joy. And it's so, I think it's really true, honestly. Because it's like without that stuff, I don't know. It's like there's less color. Like
you don't have context. Yeah. If you've only ever eaten pomegranates your whole life, they're just going to be like, bleh. But if you're somebody...
That was such an Emily metaphor. Can we just talk about that for a second?
A fruit metaphor.
Yes, because there's a fruit metaphor. Like, to me, only eating pomegranates for my whole life sounds awful. But I get that for you.
Right.
That's like, an equivalent of like the silver spoon or whatever. Like,
okay. All right. Yes. But then if you've only eaten like bland, like, I don't know, what's something bland and not great? Like gruel, like from like, what's that
gruel?
Play? Gruel. That like, who's that little Timmy who's like, please sir, I want some more.
The orphan kid.
Yeah, and then he just wants more gruel.
Oliver Twist?
Yes!
I've never seen it, but like, Tommy? Is that what it's...
Gruel. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up.
Like oatmeal?
But grosser.
Is gruel
more
real
depressing.
Or is it from... It's gray. There's no color in it.
No, it's gray and it's made out of questionable things. Anyway, and then you eat a pomegranate. You are like, wow, this pomegranate's amazing because you've got context. You have gruel. We have gruel. This person you were in a relationship had no gruel. It must be like, man, you've only eaten pomegranates your whole life.
Yeah, that is what it was like. Yeah. That was totally what it was like. I always told him, I was like, just everything, silver spoon. you don't get it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
And
man.
it is so true. Like what you were saying about like the Rolodex thing. That is something that I've had to become really consciously aware of, because
Mhm.
the Rolodex, like the catastrophizing and like doing the whole
Mhm.
emotional transference where you're just accessing pain from your past, that creates a lot of unnecessary pain in a moment and
Mhm.
inflates everything to like an unmanageable place for sure. And so
Mhm.
as soon as I realized like I was doing that, or I have a tendency to do that, or I want to do that, and I do think it's our brain. I don't think it's like a character flaw. It's like our brain
Mm-mm.
being like, this feels bad. This has felt bad in the past, and you need to do something to protect yourself. Like it is a protective
Mhm.
mechanism, you know? It's like
Oh,
trying to
totally.
like
It's like how we
remember.
categorize things and
Mm,
understand them and like
mm-hmm.
totally.
Yeah.
But knowing that and remembering that, especially when I'm like feeling shitty, has helped me so
Mm-hmm.
much.
100%.
Seriously,
Yeah.
especially in conversations with Ben. And also, I don't know, I've also been practicing this thing. I started adding an affirmation that was like, I listen more readily, even when I'm upset, to the quiet knowing voice. Because I
Mm,
feel like when I'm upset, there is always the like more knowledgeable part of me that isn't kicked up, that's quieter. I'm like
mm.
there, like this
That's
isn't
really
true, you're
beautiful.
okay.
Yeah.
And I've been becoming more aware of it by just simply bringing my awareness to it, by like having it in my morning routine every morning, that I
Mm-hmm.
like say I listen more readily to the like the quieter, more knowing voice. And it's actually been really interesting because I implemented it in like actually when I was in Asheville, because I was realizing I was having a few situations where in like conversation that's like more heated with Ben, I was doing this thing where I was like, no, this always happens. And he
Mm.
was just like, it doesn't always happen. I understand that you're like feeling that way right now, but when you say it always happens, you know, you're making it more
Right.
difficult on us and on me, myself, me as in myself, not on him. I don't know. Ever since I started doing that, it's been like easier, because what I've noticed is like my protectors are big and angry and more of like a fight response,
Right.
and it's we've talked about this before on the podcast, but it took me a while to realize that I don't want to come out of that often when I'm in it,
Right. Right.
because it
It
feels
feels good.
safer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually like I really kind of grappled with like, how do I want to come out of that, because I know I don't make the best decisions from that place. And it's been the like calling attention to this, the quieter, more knowing voice, and
Mm.
placing value on it.
Mm.
And it's helped me. Actually, it's only been like a few weeks, but it's helped me so much.
That's
And
so
like
beautiful.
getting out of feeling like this is always how it is, feeling like a victim, feeling like I can't fix anything or nothing's ever going to change.
No, that's really beautiful. That's like good for me to hear, because I do feel like I can get so frantic and like frayed out and like confused or scared, and to like, but you're so right that if you can get to a place where you're just like quieting down a little bit, like you have the reassurance you need and the truth that you need, like it's
Mhm.
there, like you can access it. And I mean, I've been dealing with, even just lately, like just feeling a little destabilized and confused, and that's the thing I'm trying to practice, is like coming back to like my knowing, you know, and like that
Yes.
wise inner
Yes.
voice. And but it is like a practice to trust that, especially when your intuition or that inner voice has been devalued and um told
Mm.
is wrong, told that you can't try. Like if you've experienced either self-imposed self-doubt or other people causing you to doubt yourself or whatever, it's so disorienting. But but it's a practice. It's a practice, like to listen and to value that, you know, over anything else, really.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't know, because I think that everyone, and maybe it's not everyone. I hope it's not everyone, but I feel like most people, especially when you're a kid, especially how our parents parented, you just didn't have anyone helping you strengthen your own like like getting in touch with that knowing voice, that
No,
like, or your
I
intuition or
know.
whatever you want to call it.
I
And you
know.
just have been like, it's been dismissed and told that it's not real. And it
Mhm.
makes you like question your own grip on reality sometimes,
Yes.
and not feeling like you have a good grip on reality, or you can't trust yourself to like assess a situation, is like one of the most uncomfortable feelings I've ever
Yeah.
experienced in my life. And it's
Yes.
I don't know. It's just, I think about that a lot for when we have kids. Like I just, and you recently, I forget what it was we were talking about, what I said to you. I was like, Emily, that's actually like amazing, because you're actually
Mhm.
encouraging your girls to get in touch with that like knowing
Mhm.
voice, and
Mhm.
you're cultivating like a sense of like, you're strengthening it and you're validating it, and it's so
Mm.
important.
Mhm.
Fuck.
Mhm.
Do you remember what
Yeah.
that was we were
And it
talking
starts
about?
was it when like
You remember that conversation, right? Because you were like, "You're right." Like, you didn't realize, like,
I
it wasn't
do.
like,
Yeah.
um,
It wasn't like right. I wasn't putting two and two together. I don't know. I can't remember the specific though about what it was with the girls. Um, yeah, those things, they start like really small, like it, because like it starts with them having like bodily like agency, like
mm,
them getting decide what they do with their body, not being forced to like
mm,
finish food that they don't want to finish, because it starts there with them telling that, like if
mm,
you tell them that they're not in charge of their body, and then it's like then they have a feeling, and if somebody like devalues that or diminishes that, right, and they're like, you stop your belly aching, like stop being upset, stop
mm,
crying, right, then you're like saying, oh, I can't trust my
mm,
feelings. And then yeah, and then it just like that keeps going, like like you don't know what you're talking about. This is like having somebody else tell you what your reality is, like that's what I experience, like 100%. I know that's what you experience, and it
mm.
creates a deep like like a division, like a duality within you, and you're just like, we're just like trying to close the gap, and I'm hoping with my girls that I can, I'm trying my best to be like validate, just like that feeling makes sense, like it makes so much sense that you're feeling that,
Mm-hmm.
like yes, and asking them like what they think. This was one of the main things that like a big thing that stands out is I don't ever remember being asked questions as a child, like what do you think about this,
Mm.
or what is your opinion about this, or do you have thoughts about this? It was never that. I felt like I was being told what to think or
It's
what to
true.
feel about things.
Asking
Yes.
questions, getting to
Mhm.
know the knowing voice, listening to that knowing voice. It's yeah, it's
Trusting
the
it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's so important. And it takes time.
It does. It does. And I
I
think
don't even
like
think I was like aware of it.
mm-hmm.
Not fully. Not until it was raging. You know what I mean? Not until I had situations like the one that comes to mind for me always when my intuition was like on fire was that one person I worked for, where I was like,
Right.
this person is bad. He's a
Right.
bad
Mm-hmm.
man.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't like doing anything, like he wasn't like murdering someone in front of me.
Right.
And so I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why do I feel like I'm gonna like throw up in this person's presence?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
That was a big
That
one.
was the thing about situations like that though, because I was actually just talking to somebody who I recently brought on my team, and she sounded like she went through something similar. And I was like, listen, I don't know the details, but I know in my own experience, when that happens, it like nothing strengthens
Mm-hmm.
you listening to that little voice earlier and more readily than a situation like
Right.
that.
Right.
So it feels like
Yes.
shit, but it ultimately like strengthens your resolve, you know?
That's such a good way to look at it though. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I do like this takeaway. I feel good about like the takeaway from like the it rains, it pours, and the catastrophizing and the Rolodex of emotions and stuff is like tuning in, like trying to like find some stillness and tune in to that like inner knowing, and not just like the fear, panicky, survival, whatever instincts.
I like that because it was fun to see you in a different energy, and I enjoyed our conversation. Because it's not often that Emily gets like this, folks.
I don't.
And so when it happens, I can't help it, but I just think it's so hilarious. And I know it's awful because you're frustrated, but I'm like, oh, you're so cute right now.
Frustrated, tears.
Such an annoying friend.
It makes me feel good because I truly feel like if I had somebody being like, oh no, that's so terrible, that's so what, it would make it worse. Like I feel like it would exacerbate it. But like truly,
like you just be like,
yeah, having like somebody laugh at it helps me laugh at it, and then I get into my whole shtick where I need to tell stories and I need to be absurd, which helps. It just helps.
It does help.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah, I love you too so much.
Hopefully we got all of our tech right this time. But probably not.
Definitely not. Yours is going to be perfect. Mine is going to be like our poor like tech people are just like probably like what is wrong? Like what is wrong with this person at this point? Like is she okay in the head?
You're so close.
The answer is
please.
No.
It took me 3 months to set up a situation that functioned every time. And it still gets messed up, actually.
I know. Yeah.
Tech is like so bizarre
it's
to me.
It's so hard. It's just so hard.
Well, until next time, we're going to figure it out. We got some time.
Until next time. Yes. Yes, we do. All right. Bye.